Okay. Okay, thanks a lot for being here for the audience. It's a tight, timely conference, and so it's difficult to not enjoy the breaks. But thanks for all of you who came, and thanks particularly for the panelists. We're here to discuss healthcare systems in Slovakia, but also a discussion based on what we know about other types of systems, other types of practices, and hopefully best practices. My name is Andrea Liverani. I'm the program leader for sustainable development and infrastructure at the World Bank. I cover European member states. I am not an expert in healthcare. My only claim to fame is that I worked for 1 year in an old people's home, in an elderly care facility. So I think I've seen firsthand what it means to deliver healthcare to the elderly. I believe it's an important topic, not only from a development perspective, but also from a personal perspective. We all have parents that are getting old, we'll be old ourselves. And it's important to have care systems that deliver quality services. Now, this is a problem for Slovakia, not only for Slovakia though, the whole of Europe is getting old. Aging is a problem throughout Europe. This is putting immense pressure on delivery systems throughout Europe. And it is important to find models that are effective, not only in terms of quality, but also in terms of finance. And today we're going to discuss some of the challenges, the angles that we are going to hopefully address in the discussion is what it means to deliver quality health services for the elderly in lagging regions, with problems of capacity at subnational level, problems of financing these services, and problems of integration between different levels of government, central government, subnational governments, municipalities, but also problems of integration between public and private. And I'm looking at Paul here, who knows this activity very well as the TTL of the entire Catching-up Regions Initiative. And I'm alluding at the point that he made this morning, that it's very important to understand the role of the public and private sector in these circumstances. So we have a large and distinguished panel today here with us. Let me say a few words to introduce them. So let's start from right there on your left. Mr. Franz Wolfmeier is an expert for inclusive social service systems from Graz in Austria. I believe he's got 20, 30 years experience in the sector, 40. And he will help us understand how the situation in Slovakia compares to other systems throughout the world. Mr. Sterba is the team leader for ESF implementation in Slovakia at DG Employment, is a colleague from the Commission. Maria Mahidikova is an expert and a project manager with the Foundation Socia. Ms. Denisa Nimtsova is a director at Health Services and Social Services section in the region of Banska Bystrá. Mr. Kralik, an expert in healthcare expert in Slovakia. Who am I forgetting? Mr. Velika is the director for social facility. Velika, sorry about that, my pronunciation is failing me. In Filakovo, and Mr. Marian Habovchik, the mayor of the municipality of Lenka. Thank you all for being here with us today. Let me start from a kind of more global perspective and ask Mr. Wolfmeier, what do you think the key principles for providing better healthcare to the elderly are? And why do you think this model focused on the beneficiary, on the person, is the way to go, both globally and here in Slovakia?
Yes, thank you for the question. You mentioned about integrated care, integration. You missed one important point for integration. What is meant with integrated care? It's the integration of different silos of administrations we have. We have health, we have social, we have employment. They have to be integrated because if people do not have sense in their lives, they will become ill and need more care. If I ask you, and the question is why we need such models, if I ask you how you want to become old, and then I'm quite sure, and Maria just told me about the research they did here in Slovakia, that up to 90% of the people want to stay at home, want to age at home, and want to die at home. So this is a strong message, I think, and we have to design the care models around this message because of human rights aspects. So this is new. We have it now. We have all signed and ratified the UN Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and at the end of life, many of us will have a disability. So these rights, these human rights, to be asked how we want to have it, this is crucial. The second point why we need such models for me is that it is not, it cannot be funded anymore to go this old model to have institutions for people with this, for aging people. There's research available, and in around 20 years, 1/4 of the working population in our countries have to work in the care field. That's unfundable. That's unorganized. We cannot organize that. So that's also a need for alternative care models. So what are the alternative care models? It's called integrated care. It's a model which is very much supported by the World Health Organization, and the World Health Organization made a strategy for Europe from 2020 to 2030. And this strategy have 4 points, 4 main points. The one is aging does not start with 65. Aging starts from birth. So we have to find solutions where we take the responsibility for our lives from birth to health, to age healthy. So this is one of the points. The second point is we need supportive environments. Supportive environments, and the UN Convention on the Rights of the Persons with Disabilities says it very clear. First is accessibility. We need accessible frameworks for our houses. If you look to your houses, I'm quite sure most of your houses are not accessible. And if you get a problem, then you have to leave the house and go to a care home. So, and I created in my organization accessible flats, and it's 10 years we had opened it now, and already 5 people could stay until to their death there in these flats. But for the supportive environments, we need also environments for special conditions. So we need neighborhoods need to know how to deal with people with dementia and so on. So we need concepts for special challenges. The third point is long-term care has to be designed according to individual needs. So we heard it today. There was one saying about what was it? I forgot it. But the question is, we need services individualized. So that means nobody of us will need the same service as the neighbor. So that makes it cheaper, and it makes it more effective. And at the end, we need also new models for quality measurement and quality management. We all know the input, throughput, and the output model of quality. We need to measure now the outcome. And the outcome is the quality of life of the persons who get care. So this is individual needs. And the fourth point is we need to have more evidence. So still in Europe, in almost most of the countries, we have not enough evidence. We don't know about what is going on in the neighbor countries. And you can find such models everywhere. And last sentence I want to say, it's not linked with money. It's linked with the philosophy and the culture. When I was the first time in Indonesia invited when the negotiations about the UN Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities started, there were people from an island in Indonesia. They didn't have money, but they had organized in the communities that all the people who have special needs, to support needs, are evaluated every year and regularly what do they need, what can be done by family members, what can be done by neighbors and so on. And at the end stands what has to be done by organized professional services. So it's the question of the approach we need. And I said family members, this is also important for integrated care. We have to support the family members. They have to, they play an important role, and they are the biggest service provider in Europe.
Thank you very much. So what you're describing, based at least on my experience of elderly care, is a completely different outlook, philosophy, approach that is much more centered on the specificity of each individual and go beyond what we normally think of as elderly care. So let me ask the question of Mr. Abovchik, Ms. Ninkova, and Ms. Velika. What do you think about this approach? What are the benefits that this approach could bring, based on your experience and your responsibility, starting with Mr. Abovchik?
Based on our experience, the self-governing regions and municipalities, etc. We have 15 municipalities which are going to create this model, and this is what has been mentioned. The services cannot offer these services because most of them have up to 200 inhabitants, and this model connects the social services and health services which the citizens from the municipalities can mutually share. And our goal, of course, is the accessibility of these services, the cooperation of these municipalities, and what is very important is that the agency and the social services can work well, and of course that it will be sustainable. If I may add something, I think that at the very least in Slovakia, I don't know how it is in other countries, what happened is that up to some point before the revolution, let's say, in the old regime of socialism, the whole concept of care of seniors was based on the fact that there were multi-generational families, and the family played a very important role in the taking care of the seniors. Nowadays, when we live this cosmopolitan life and people leave home to go work somewhere else, what happens is that especially in these lower, less developed regions, there are seniors with nobody to take care of them because their family has gone. And so the original system was focused on residential care, and we didn't really develop outpatient care so that the people could remain at home and rely on these outpatient care providers and also their families. So now we need to change the approach, and we need to focus on the people. The model that we talked about was about people staying at home and aging at home, and I think that there is space for this discussion because in Slovakia we have a system of residential care services. There are some standards, and it is distributed over the regions. But we have a very big room for building something new that we can build in compliance with some standards and principles. What I can say for the BBSK region is that we have 516 municipalities, and each municipality should, in theory, be taking care of its citizens, but only 148 municipalities have a very basic care service. So, outpatient care with, let's say, some ladies who come to your household and help you with some basic tasks. And there's a lot of these holes in the system. So it is a huge challenge, but it can also be a huge benefit that we don't have to change the system that's been in operation for a long time, but we actually have green field and we can build something meaningful. I am from the care center Nezabudka in Pilakovo, and we are a non-profit organization founded by the town. But we operate in the non-profit sector, and what the speakers before me have said is that something we have been trying to implement in practice for 13 years. We started with the operation of a social care center, but we also offer outpatient care, and we have also extended our services to, for example, canteen, transport service. So these are services which are kind of additional to the basic ones, and our goal is to keep our clients at home for as long as possible. And once it is really not possible, even with, let's say, family members or the outpatient care providers, or if they are alone and nobody to help them, then we are, dealing with their transfer to a full-time kind of residential care where they are under the supervision of these care providers. But until they are at home, we are trying to provide help assistance with shopping, with food. So we deliver food to them. We deliver lunches. We have transport vehicles. So, for example, if they need to go and visit the cemetery, or if they want to visit any places, we try and help to get them there. And also in this region, we were trying to basically get employees who were more or less had some kind of disadvantage on the labor market. So for all of these works, we are using people who are 60%, employment seekers from some disadvantaged backgrounds. At the beginning, a lot of people didn't trust this project because it is very brave, or they thought it was very brave to kind of employ these kinds of people from these backgrounds. But I must say that in the 13 years of our existence, we have gotten used to this model and we use it, and it is working. And the labor office also helps us with providing certain money to pay these workers. So we are actually using people who have been, for example, unemployed for a long time, which is a great combination. And there is a lack of care providers. We started with 3 nurses, and now we have au pairs, and now we have 15, and there's more and more demand all the time. When we had a lack of these au pairs, we got basically approval to organize courses for caregivers. And we are accredited within the whole of EU. So basically, the graduates of our course can get employed all over Europe. And it feels very nice when they sometimes come back, or when they call us and they said that we've given them everything they need, and that they are very thankful for that, because we really focus on the practical part. And in the 5-6 weeks of this course, these people take part in the entire working process that they will be required to do later. So they actually learn all of their practical skills, and it is a very good system. And we are trying to also expand our services to cover other things, and in the near future, the town would like to also give us the daycare center operation as a responsibility, and this is some kind of a transition between the home care and the residential care. So while the person can go, for example, to the daily care center during the day, they will go there, they will get food there, they will be taken care of, but in the evening they go back home and they sleep in their own bed. So this is kind of like a interim point, and this is what we would like to achieve this year. Thank you very much. Ďakujem veľmi pekne.
This was very rich. I would like to touch upon the problem of finance, because what we've discussed so far is how to improve the quality of care, how to change to different model, how to take certain new principle into perspective. But at the end of the day, we know that already under the current model, we have financing pressure, and these are only going to get larger and deeper. So thinking a little bit from your own experience, and I'm particularly looking at Mr. Kralik here, Ms. Majdikova, but also Mr. Sterber from the Commission. How do you see the challenges in the current financing model? How a potential new model could address those financing challenges? And then for Mr. Sterber, how the structural funds can help Slovakia in this sense. Mr. Kralik.
Ďakujem.
That's a very difficult question. The most characteristic trait of our system of financing is its incredible fragmentation. It is broken into dozens and dozens of different rules, different flows, different streams, if you may, of financing. And in this system of financing, we have there's predefined integration. So we are trying to solve this problem in this way that we look at it at the micro-region level, and we, at the very least, bring the knowledge, or we let the, let's say, central government know about this problem, and how it would be possible to maybe harmonize all of these streams of financing or coordinate them. There are some ways to do that. Of course, the level of micro-region has its limits, but we have taken it as a task that we would be looking at the problem from bottom up. So we want to identify possibilities and find out what the boundaries are. And the other ambition is to provide feedback to the creators of legislation and creators of financing systems, whether that's healthcare or also community services. And we try to tell them what they should do in order to help the integration by changing the financing system. And then there's an approach which could be up to down, from the top to the bottom, and this is the Ministry of Labor and Family and Family Affairs. And within the 20 years I've been in healthcare, I've seen multiple attempts to harmonize, to coordinate these two systems, and they all pretty much failed. Now there is another attempt, and we are all hopeful. We are, forever optimists. We are hoping it will end up well. And some of us, sometimes I actively participate if I can manage it in my time, but I cannot estimate. I'm not brave enough to try and foresee whether it will be successful this time or not. This is the system financing. And then there is something that in Slovakia we call a cap. So we have some kind of a difference between the civilized society and the situation in some of our regions. And here there are obviously very important Eurofunds, and where I personally see it as 50-50, that something is successful, there are enough finances, and they are used well, but on the other hand, I also think there is a huge potential to use the finances much better and support the trends that we have been talking about. So to support it in a more intelligent way, which is not a problem of the European Union or the European Commission. This is our local problem, that we should be able to set up and direct those finances in a much better way than we are doing it currently. And I think that among experts who, let's say, in these areas, also in the not healthcare but also community services, and the experts from these areas, I have to say that sometimes we are desperate and we are looking for ways of influencing, positively influencing the situation. But what we always come across is that the Eurofund industry is not easy to manage, but again, this is our local problem. This is not the problem of the European Commission or the Euro funds as such, that they are like set up in the wrong way. That's not a problem. The problem is that we in Slovakia don't know how to use them well enough, and everybody who has experience with Euro funds can confirm this, I think. So this is what I have to say. Thank you.
Well, I might get back to the possibilities of funding. As Mr. Kralik said, that it's very fragmented and healthcare has different system of financing, and there are various forms of social care financing. But as Ms. Velika said, a lot of things can be done, but it depends on people. It depends on, even despite the defunct system, an incorrect setting of the funding in Slovak Republic, they go for it, and they have the support of the mayor or the regional government or 15 municipalities, and they just do that extra work. Because especially or at least in the social care, the financing is focused on inpatient care. So if for the client, inpatient care is the most favorable from the financial point, and it costs most money for the government, and if we don't change, or until we change this approach, as Franz mentioned at the beginning, we will not be able to cover it. What we can do from this level of people who are in the field, either as providers or founders or local government, is that we can do some extra work. And the model which has been proposed is extra work, overtime work. And we are pleased that it's now or finally appreciated financially, because then it will be able to see what the extra work will bring for the people, for local government, and use it as an argument at the national political level, because without the political will, we cannot change the system. Ďakujem pekne. Pán Štrba. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Let me go back to the topic concerning the financing, as the colleagues have already indicated that they mentioned European funds. And we at the Commission, we consider it as a priority even before the COVID crisis. The sector was underfunded, where the average in the EU is 1.6% of GDP of public funds for long-term care. In Slovakia, it was less than 1%, and that was the time before COVID. Now it is even worse. It's different. And around 1/3 of that, less than 1% of the funds went to informal caregivers, so family members who take care of their parents or family members at home, which basically is a good thing. However, if there is a network of professional services they can rely on, that their situation is not easy, because it keeps them away from the labor market, and the whole families remain in poverty. So we still consider it as a clear priority, and from our level we see that this is an issue of underfunding of municipal budgets, which must be dealt with by the Slovak Republic internally. And however, until then, we want to support municipalities from ESF and EU funds in general to provide such services. So that's one question, whether there are funds. And then the second one is to get the funds there where it's necessary. And I would like to stress what Ms. Machajdíková said and what we learned from the World Bank. And we have Paul Chris with us, who and his team really did a great job. And it reminds me of a life motto or slogan of Miroslav Štefanik, greatest Slovak, who lived by the rule that may anyone, all of us are better today than they were yesterday, and then our country can be big and famous. So this is what it's about. We have key people here, mayors, experts, representatives of the ministries, new section at Ministry of Investments and Regional Development. So all the key stakeholders and who started doing that extra work and are better today than they were yesterday. So thanks to that, we are today talking about successes of the project. So you managed to bring the spirit of Miroslav Štefanik to the work and to Slovak politics, and this will always be remembered.
Many thanks for the inspirational work and thanks for the congratulatory remarks. I was told at the beginning of the session that we need to keep to the timing of the original schedule. So we essentially have 10 minutes left, and I still have 2 blocks of questions. I think this block that was to come concerned the challenges that municipalities in lagging regions and service providers face in delivering care. You already alluded to some of these challenges, and so for the benefit of timing, but also because I would like to focus on the model that the activity proposed and discuss what are its principles and what are its challenges in terms of implementation. I would like to focus on these. I would like to keep it to 10 minutes. I'm not sure I will have any time to give the floor to the audience, but if you want to ask questions, please tell me now, show your hand. All right, first of all, to give the floor to the authors of the model. You guys have 2 minutes each, and then give the floor back to Mr. Wolfmeyer with a few words on how this model compares to international best practice. What does it do well and what it still needs to do? And then the floors to those that represent municipalities, social and health services, and then finally to the Commission again on what they see in terms of the implementation of the challenges. This is because we want to take this to the implementation level and not just leave it on paper. So the word back to you. Please be brief because we will be stopped in 9 minutes.
No, to je pre mňa dosť taká výzva, byť stručný. Len sa sústrete na to, aké sú také hlavné, 5 hlavných bodov toho modelu. It maybe doesn't even have that many of them, but the first one and the basic one is that during all of these reforms since 1989, what has left the services is the local or community level. That's why was it in 1989? Of course, there was this centralizing. The state was in charge of all of these national committees, and they had a lot of roles. And during the reforms of healthcare and maybe social sector, my colleague will know more about this, they were kind of left out of this. And we are trying to give it back this very important role and to put it as an equal partner to the healthcare and the social system. So that's the first strategic, element. And the second one, and it's connected to it, is that health and social problems have a very big local community aspect, and this was omitted from the discussions, and nobody is kind of looking at this matter with the eyes of definitely not individuals, but not even the eyes of the micro region or a bigger region. And the third thing that I would maybe mention, just to be brief, is that if the micro region or let's say municipal level should be dealing with this matter, it has to get more professional. It cannot be left to laymen, we cannot leave its fate up to the representatives of the municipalities. So they have to create tools, they have to create these agencies, for example, in our case, that will be experts in the field, that will look at it 24/7, 365 days a year, and it will be responsible for two things: for the development of the services in the region and for the integration as well. So that's, from my point of view, these are the basic principles of the model.
No, ja môžem len za seba povedať,
Is, and for the social area, is that we are all social beings and we need networks of relationships, networks of support. And this happens best at the community level. And for what Mr. Kanál said, I just wanted to highlight the relationships. The relationships are absolutely necessary if this integrated model is to work. And there's the cooperation at the level of municipalities, the cooperation at the level of providers, and also all of this is happening around the person and his family, for whom the municipalities and the providers basically are basing their existence on. If we look at our legislative formulations, the municipality is here to help people live better in the area where they live, and the providers are here so that they can fulfill their needs, and this is what it's about. Ďakujem veľmi pekne. Pán Wolfmeier? Veľmi rýchlo.
With your experience.
In general, I agree. We have to give more responsibilities to the communities. That's where the people are living, and they know best what people need. So if they ask them. The second, what I miss is the role of civil society. Civil society is the driver of innovation, of social innovation, and we have now in the new Commission strategy an action plan for social economy. And social economy can help, and you see examples here, Maria and the colleague from the service provision, what they can do. They will develop and provide the adapted services for individual needs. And I only can say, make it more open, your regulation. These are enterprises. They provide services and they employ a lot of staff, as what we also heard, and they take the responsibility for that. And you should accept that. And I think that and value that. This is important.
Thank you. What is the perspective of a mayor? What does a municipality, a mayor like you, need to implement this model over the next 3 years? 3 things that you need that you don't have today. Tomorrow they give you this on paper. What do you need to implement it?
First of all, thank you very much for actually giving me this opportunity to participate in this project. It is a model situation, it is a pilot situation that we're doing for the first time, and that's why it's very important how we set our rules, how we set our future functioning and operation, how we select the staff, quality staff, and we always have to think about how to sustain the project. For our municipalities, it is a huge help because, as I've already mentioned, we cannot offer these services as a separate municipality. And when we were defending this intent, we came across the problem that small municipalities don't want to participate in these big projects because if they get, let's say, some finances for some project for care provider and the client dies in the meantime, there's a problem, there's a lot of obligations that come with this, and there's a lot of responsibility, and that's why I'm very happy for this model. And I've been dealing with social things, for social affairs for a long time. And if if let's say one of our client dies, we replace him with a different client, or we move the care provider to somebody else. We can also link this to other services. We can connect to the current providers in the region, whether they are operating under the self-governing region or they are operating as a private entity, and we can interconnect these services and move them so that we can help the citizen, and so that the citizen really gets high quality service.
Thank you very much. Question for Ms. Nintsova, and rather than asking about needs, what can a region like yours do in order to support municipalities and the implementation of the model? How is the contribution that the region can bring?
Well, I think that the role of the region is also in the concept thinking, and somehow in the way of, not like it should be like a work taken for granted, that we are working with practical experience from practice, because I think that these innovative models that we will also try here, they will generate practical experience, and it is important to collect the data, to verify the data, maybe to implement the data and into other regions and try it out there as a model, which is what we are doing as a region. We have already 3 other micro regions where we are going to try this model. And the role of the self-governing region is to evaluate this data and maybe start with some kind of change into regional law.
Thank you, and thanks for being brief. Let me ask the last question of Ms. Velika. You know the main pillars of the model, they've been described now. Can you tell us the 2 things that, from your perspective as a service provider, you will find difficult to implement if the model became concretely in practice tomorrow? What would be the challenges that you would face in implementing the model? If there are any, you can say this is just beneficial, it would be fantastic, but you just have 2 minutes to do it.
Well, when it comes to the problems, we will definitely have some problems, but from the very beginning of our existence, the whole process of adding more and more services, it's always problematic. And if we gave up at the beginning, we wouldn't be where we are now. So I think that the problems are here to be solved. And the result then speaks for everything. But one more thing, maybe what could be a problem is the problem of quality staff members, because we cannot always get quality staff members. This was said at the beginning of this conference that educated people leave the region, and if we want these people to work how we imagine they will work, how we expect it, we have to prepare them for that, especially when we work with our employees who are from this problematic background, as I told you. So that might be a problem, but I think that every problem can be overcome, and maybe also because of the employees that we kind of like raised up, we managed to have like no quarantine in our facility. It was clean from coronavirus, despite the fact that we had some employees who had to quarantine at their homes, but we never had coronavirus in our facility. So we were working with, let's say, we had fewer employees. Let's say that we had 10 employees missing at a time, but our other employees learned to substitute their colleagues as well. So we managed to keep the operation at a very good level, and the workers can work at the different positions. Basically, everybody can provide basic care, and everybody, even the cleaning ladies, the reception lady, they can all do that. So these are all people who need to substitute their colleagues in the field if necessary. And I think that that's very good. And thanks to them, we managed to operate throughout the whole COVID pandemic. Ďakujem veľmi.
Is a basic challenge, but it comes up across various domains. Let me close the panel asking the Commission of the extent to which the current RRP, the NRP, supports the reform of the system in your view, and to what extent the possible scale-up of this model can be subsumed in the system, in the program of reforms that the NRRP supports. You have 2 minutes to answer those questions.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for the final question. I think we've been sensitive to this already for quite some years. And we've financed under the European Social Fund various studies to help sort of correct the problems that have arrived after the local governance reform of 2006. And always the findings were, I mean, there are things to be changed, but it would require a legislative reform, which is a long-term run. So we were not hoping for any major breakthrough, and now the team of smart people around these tables and in the audience and at the conference today actually came up with a model that doesn't require legislative change, and it's very promising. Of course, it still needs to be implemented. We now have the model, and now we have to see how it works out. So, with the words of Winston Churchill, we could say that, colleagues, this is not the end. This is not even the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning for the proliferation of the integrated healthcare and social care system in Slovakia, in the micro regions that lack a major city or capital within the area. So we really hope that this is the end of the beginning, and more is ahead, and absolutely we will always be on board to support it.
Well, thank you very much. We're out of time. Let me just conclude by saying that this panel showed a substantial amount of expertise that exists in Slovakia around these tables, but also a certain level of passion in improving things. And with those, close to our heart, I think the situation can only improve for the better. Let me thank all the panelists for participating today and giving us their expertise and views, and the audience for attending. Sorry we didn't have much time for questions, but I'm sure you will want to liaise bilaterally with the panelists if you have any. Thank you very much.
Do you hear me? Yes, you hear me. Should we start then? So, this is loud. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, very nice to meet you here. We are at the final panel related to the R&D, which is a research and development collaboration. And we already heard in the morning that there are plenty of potentials and there are quite many challenges as well in Slovakia. And those regions are, so two of them with whom we've been working, Bańska and Košice, but mostly we'll be talking about Bańska, that we see that the regions in Slovakia are facing quite many, developmental bottlenecks, and they are ranging from, they are spanning from infrastructure, public transport, marginalized Roma communities, education, but also there are also potentials that we can develop in those regions. And today, with this panel, we'll be focusing on the topic like how to encourage companies and research development and the research organizations to collaborate with each other. And the whole idea behind the research and development collaboration is to encourage companies to innovate, to make them more productive, and the productivity will increase their competitiveness. So if we have more competitive companies, they will grow, they will employ more people. So this will have a positive impact on the regional growth, the socio-economic growth. Then they will offer better jobs. It will also provide more money to researchers for their research, for their analytical work. And this will also hopefully create space for people to stay in the regions and also attract new people to the region. So this is the whole idea behind the R component that we'll be today discussing. And during the last year, we have been analyzing several aspects related to research and development collaboration. And we've been thinking about the European level circumstances, the national level, the regional level, and local level. And we are really very, very lucky to have today representatives of the entities that are coming from all of these levels, so European, national, and the regional and local. So really very glad that that you came here, that you spent time with us, and that we will be able to maybe together think how we could support the region. And since the Catching-up Regions initiative is concentrating on the regions, maybe we could focus our discussion or structure our discussion around the needs and the potentials of the region. So maybe we could start with Janka, who is the head of the Catching-up Region initiative in Bańska Bystrzyca self-government administration, and she's the driver behind the innovation policy in the region with her great team that is made of Lucia, Veronika, Luboš, Peter, and some other colleagues that were supporting us during this time. And maybe you could start with you, Janka, presenting us how you do you like to develop innovation policy in the region? Right now, you developed a quite ambitious agenda, and would be maybe you could highlight two bottlenecks for your agenda and also two potentials that you think that we could discuss today, and maybe you'd like to gain some also knowledge or feedback from our co-panelists, what could be done for the region, to help to support you. Thanks.
Greg, thank you very much for the floor. Let me greet our panel members and let me shortly introduce our plan to you. Our plan is to implement the innovation policy aimed at launching a successful innovation ecosystem in Bańska Bystrica self-governing region. The inspiration for our plan is for quadruple and more quintuple helix model for application of growth, for exponential growth, we know that the practice has shown that innovation policies usually focus on spheres of those spiral models or helix models, and coexistence of these models often distinguish the theory and practice. Therefore, we put strong emphasis on making models operational. We consider that best practices can be really used, and we use them in compiling or designing the innovation policy in our region. Just to briefly stop with the quintuple helix model, which we built on in developing or in preparing the development plan in our region. There is an interaction of 5 subsystems: education, business, entrepreneurship, public administration, the public, the environment, and everything based in economy, knowledge-based economy. We are aware of the fact that the knowledge and know-how play the key role in this aspect. They circulate inside the model and in practice as outputs, and we focus on that. We consider this knowledge the most valuable commodity in our innovation plan. And we are aware of the fact that its result is that all subsystems in innovation helix are influencing each other, are influenced by the knowledge to keep this level of innovations. So innovations, in our opinion, must be the key investments for the future of the region, because the main role of innovations is, in our opinion, to transform and transfer results of the research to better, more modern products. And that must be reflected not only in the competitiveness, but also in better quality of life. What we are focusing on is that we can see a huge potential of the region. And we want to keep young potential people in the region, to build values, to be satisfied here. We have the will to innovate, to develop, and also thanks to catching up regions, we can conclude that there is strong hunger, appetite for functional working connections between innovation capacities and business entities. At this moment, we are not afraid of grasping the whole initiative or whole concept in a systemic way, because we want to focus on a region which is strong, economically sustainable, and is a high quality place for life. And our vision in the innovation policy will be embodied in the regional innovation center. That will be the institution or point which will connect all stakeholders. For us, it is a challenge to form and support young people. We want to accompany them in promoting their knowledge and directing them towards research and development. However, there is a huge challenge and goal on the part of services to businesses, and looking for solutions which will help them grow, develop, innovate, get to internationalize their activities. And I think that we can probably say that we are already running a pilot for this. The added value of the Regional Innovation Center will be providing umbrella services to all partner organizations and institutions in one spot. We want to provide high quality consultancy to companies, clusters, or young talents. We want to build a high quality network of contacts. We want to build functional relations in the Innovation Center. So that's a brief description of the innovation policy. And to briefly characterize the two main points or highlights, there are two of them. The first one, in brief, is that we want to build our innovation ecosystem in the region on values, the ethics, cooperation, and professionalism. This is a very important pillar for us, and this is how we are working already now as part of Catching-up initiative in Banska Bystrica region. The second pillar, and it's often referred to as new, open, innovative ecosystem approach, and I think it includes many attributes which are necessary for building an innovation center. Let me mention the most distinctive ones, besides coordination of stakeholders. However, it must be in real time and real context, not sterile, not competing partners that already operate in the region, either at from the national level or some partners in the region. But it's also the support to innovators, development of entrepreneurship. It's also building sustainable ecosystems for economy that focus on things not working just today or tomorrow, but things which are future-proof. And one thing I would like to mention is social communities, social capital, human resources. So these are two principal highlights. And talking about bottlenecks, I don't like this expression. Let me be very personal. I prefer challenges or opportunities. So what we can now identify as a problem, what we found out also thanks to the expertise of the World Bank, we want to transform that into huge opportunity. And to pick just two of them, I will start with the less poetic one, and it's the money. Financial mechanism. We introduced innovation vouchers, and we know that the companies in the region and innovation capacities, they need financial mechanisms. They need innovation funds, and those mechanisms must be functioning. On the other hand, the most important pillar is human resources, high-quality people in Regional Innovation Center, high-quality people on the part of innovators, high-quality researchers at universities and centers of excellence, and serious or decent partners in companies. And not to forget the young people. We have been training since the age of primary schools, as we opened in a lab a creative community center, and we want to multiply the model in the region thanks to the national project. So this is the point or opportunity to which we want to pay much attention. And let me, if we want to just to add one area, one thing which is necessary, it is definitely in increasing the awareness of the population of innovations and their impact on everyday life of people in the region, education, all sectors which form the overall system. So I'm not now asking other panelists to provide particular solutions, but I would rather make use of this opportunity to thank all of you for the existing operation, because with all panel members we have been in very good professional relations. I want to thank for the communication, for cooperation, we can really say that we have built a lot of successful activities. We have implemented a lot of it since 2019. So I dare to say a wish, very important for me, to continue in this productive dialogue. We need all of you, always each level, and we cannot move forward without any of these partners, or without a single of these partners. We are ambitious, we want to grow in a systemic way, slowly, and that's why we need all of you for that. So I hope that today we will define next steps and start a new stage of our activities.
Hey, Janka, thank you very much. As I told you, the region is very ambitious, and they have, they shaped this agenda, and the team will be pushing this with in collaboration, as Janka said, of the partners that we have today on the stage, but also in the audience, and also ones using the beautiful weather and catching up after the 1.5 years of not seeing each other. So I think that this will be a great, this is a great outline, in fact, and what you said, that there are challenges, and I think that you mentioned the finances, the high quality people in the region, and also the increasing the awareness of people about the need for the innovation. And I think that we can discuss about those issues here and think together maybe how we could, maybe not provide solutions, but think together what could be done at each level to solve or to address those issues. And as I said, we have the European level, we have national level, and then science and local level. Maybe we could start with the national level, then move to the Commission side, and then to Ferro and our colleagues from Brno. So, Edmund, you are the Minister of Economy. So you are supporting companies, you are supporting different programs for innovation through your different agendas like SEA, like SBA. You've been working with us closely, and you help us shape the innovation voucher as a pilot project for Bystrá, and we really appreciate this your permanent support on that. So from your perspective, what do you think how the ministry could support the region in addressing those 3 opportunities? So let's not use the word bottlenecks, but opportunities. But also, if you could share with us your thoughts about how do you think that the aspects or the solutions that we together worked out under the Catching-up Regions program, how they could be used or scaled up in Slovakia? Do you see the potential for that? Thanks.
Ako sa dajú rozvinúť aj ďalej na Slovensku. Thank you very much, Greg. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the floor. My background basically allows me to provide you a point of view of an already professional public servant and public officer. I have also held the position of the European officer, so perhaps I'm that more aware. And we at the Ministry of Economy are also aware of many aspects. We do realize that the target group of the businesses that we operate with and that we aim at are different than previously. Previously, the businesses were thankful and grateful for any help and any support they could give. Now they are much more demanding, and they don't want to fill in tons of forms and templates and then wait for 3 years to receive the subsidy or to absorb the subsidy. They are now much more dividing, and they do realize that basically they have to be active as well. And this is a key aspect for us as well. And innovation as a key topic, which is also the key topic of today's meeting under the Catching-up, or within the scope of the Catching-up Regions initiative. What is important for us and what we've learned from this initiative, and I'm speaking also on a personal note here, is that innovation is not a one-man show, but it's the matter of cooperation. You can never have a cooperation just born in one head. It's when people come together and discuss things that you get innovation. And this is something that we really need to learn. And this is what we see in the innovation ecosystem, or the R&D support, as we call it in Slovakia. The culture of communication and cooperation needs to be developed further, because there is a huge development potential, to put it nicely. We need to talk more. We need to communicate more. And we can already see it even in the ministries. Sometimes even the departments and different sections of the ministries do not communicate with each other. They do not know what the other departments are doing. So it's even a far-reaching argument to speak of the cooperation between different ministries. So for me, the Catching Up Regions initiative was a very positive experience of meeting the partners on the regional level that might be much more familiar, that are much more familiar with the going-ons at the regional level. And for us, it's also a pledge that we have to take upon for the future. We have to realize that innovation is not only about the topics to be discussed, but it's about looking for the instruments that can help the innovations materialize and become put into practice. And we also need to strive for the simplification of the application system for the European funds and for public funds. There have to be two aspects that are crucial. The funds need to be provided quickly and in an effective manner. So we cannot have the situation when someone is waiting for support, for innovation for a year. And so perhaps this is the homework that we have. We need to develop the tools that would be better, more targeted, and more focused on the businesses and business sector, because this is one of the groups that really need to implement innovations quickly and efficiently without a lot of paperwork. And another thing which I find important in this initiative is something that we also see when it comes to our cooperation with Banská Bystrica. Not only in Banská Bystrica, but also in Prešov, we have always been entering the communication focused on how to design things. Very often the communications were quite long, winding, and perhaps tiring, but for us this was really always an investment that was capitalized in preparing the instruments that were validated and accepted. So it was worthwhile. And the innovations brought about by these were quite successful, and basically it's helping and supporting the absorption of the funds. Before the Catching Up Regions initiative, we had the call published for the entire state with one topic, so it was like an aerial strike. However, now the calls are much more targeted, which I believe is very important, because they need to be tailored to the particular needs of each region. Each region is different and comes with different potential. And we have learned, thanks to these initiatives, that the calls that are targeted to particular regions are have much more impact, bring bigger changes in the regions, and they increase the absorption capacity considerably. And the last thing that I want to say is that we have always approached the designing of the calls, be it the call for the SMEs, the call for tourism development and developing of the endogenous potential in Prešov, or the call for cooperation between the SMEs and VT schools. And also under the Catching Up Regions initiative, also we have to refer to the innovation pilot. It's always a pilot, and that encompasses the notion of continuance. If something is a pilot, you want to continue it if the pilot is successful. And we're not saying that the continuance have to be the copycat of the pilot, but we need to select the best things, the things that worked the best, and we need to come up with an instrument that has a potential to address the change, to bring about the change. And if the pilot is successful, we can learn from it. So even if something fails, it's not the waste of time, the waste of money, but we can take lessons from it in order to select the things that are working and to scale them up. So for us, and from where I'm standing, even the timing of the initiation of this initiative is very, very important, because it helped us to learn how to work with regional partners and partners in the regions in order to be better prepared for the design of cooperation in the next programming period.
Thanks. Thank you very much. I think that this process was really a discovery process, you know, for everyone. I think that we've been sitting around a single table for hours of technical discussions, and as you said, not always it was easy, but I think that you also showed a large degree of flexibility, and I think that you adjusted a lot to what region was trying to push for, and we also contributed a bit. So you also had strong points. I mean, that was really a creative dialogue, and as you already mentioned, I think it was great collaboration. So thanks a lot again. Andrea, maybe turning to you. So Andrea is a specialist in the Ministry of Investment and Regional Development, and Andrea is also has a great track record of working on innovations. She used to work in the Research Council, and that was dealing with resources to research organizations. So she knows the system inside out from the different point of view. So how to support innovation, how to support the collaboration between the companies and researchers. And recently she was brave enough to also spearhead or champion the national working group related to the release of the R&D infrastructure. So she was saying, okay, this is the important topic, let's do it, let's coordinate the ministries. So, you know, really big thanks for your courage and pushing this agenda forward. And so my two questions to you, and maybe there will be some more coming depending on how the discussion develops. So from a perspective of your ministry, how do you see, what do you see how the regions will be supported in developing their innovation policies during this current programming period, so 2021, 2027? As you saw, the regions have the ambitious agenda. They haven't been that active, I think, during, at least this is my perception, during the previous agenda. They didn't have that many resources. So, you know, what is the perception of the ministry about this current perspective? And then, what is your take on the opportunities that Janka mentioned? Would you have any suggestions for the region?
Thank you very much. First, I would like to thank you a lot for inviting me to this panel and for organizing this conference. The whole day we could see a lot of successful stories, cooperation, which is very important, and about the shifts to some topics towards regions. I would like to follow up to Edo and what Janka said. What needs to be done? Simply said, to continue what has started. And where we have succeeded in the past 2 years. So we could see how the national structures at the level of ministries started communication and cooperation with regions, where I think the main basis or cornerstone is for setting the instruments and how to build what is part of the Catching-up initiative, and for which I am really thankful that the initiative started, and it started to stimulate the need of communication of ministries towards regional structures. And Slovakia is composed of several regions. So, in fact, ministries must reflect the regional aspects. They cannot determine from their office. And just like this conference and activities I could attend in the past 2 months are very important for this discussion. And also the working group because it's really important to put together stakeholders, know their needs and challenges, and respond to them. And just based on this dialogue, we can set the instruments. Currently, we are in a very positive period, meaning that there will be a huge number of new opportunities. Either the partnership agreement, which is currently discussed from the recovery plan, and there are several instruments which can be used in different ways to support innovations, research, and innovation, and especially cooperation. So there are instruments, and what really matters is to communicate what is suitable for what region, and it should be the role of the ministry to create basic conditions for working of the ecosystem as such. So to try not to complicate processes, rather to streamline what has already been introduced, even though it's very difficult when we take, for example, the EU funds in the past 2 programming periods from a relatively simple system turned into a comprehensive or complex system, which became more complex, and making it simpler will take some time. However, when we need to take feedback from regions and other stakeholders that are in the ecosystem of research and development and innovation, and they are necessary there, and to set together the instruments, because not everything will work, and organizing pilots, just like it was done with the innovation vouchers, and make use of what we have. If we take into account how much research infrastructure has been built in the past 10 years, it's really a huge potential for further development of activities of research or development nature. There is room for companies to use that space, and there is big room for sharing the infrastructure, which is one of the main initiatives or tasks that should be carried out in the near future, so that the infrastructure could be used. And it's not just about the infrastructure which was built in the past, but in general, to have information what is where, so that companies could on one spot find information when they need a partner, they can find it, no matter in what field of business they operate, and what region they come from. Slovakia is quite a small country, so there is really it will be really inefficient to have double or triple structures. So in the next programming period, it's necessary to focus on networking, on communication. I think it's the most important thing, and then looking for suitable instruments, because things which work in Bratislava may not always work in Banská Bystrica or Košice. And continue what I started, continue in the existing cooperation and in mapping of monitoring and mapping of how the environment responds to instruments which have already been implemented, and there are things that are happening. If there are positive effects, or and in this respect, there's one important aspect. It's to monitor, evaluate it, analyze it, and based on that, perform later decisions. What is suitable for what region? I think that's all from my side.
Thanks, Andrea. And this is hello? Can you hear me? Okay. And this is great to hear from you and from Edmund, what you're saying, that this collaboration with the regions needs to be stronger, that there needs to be, the permanent communication, that you want to fine-tune the instruments, and tailor them to the needs of the regions. I think that this is a great signal, you know, also for Janka, she's smiling. This is also a lot of work for all the teams, you know, because those are the long discussions. But this sounds really, really, you know, promising, and I will be very happy to, you know, to support you further during the next year, you know, to continue this dialogue. Now, maybe, you know, hearing from the national level, would like to move to the Commission. So we have Peter Patrick with us, and we collaborated during the last year closely on this initiative. The Commission was always supporting our efforts and the national efforts and the regional to bring to the closure what we started. And as you've heard, we already tested or we already launched the regional innovation vouchers 2 weeks ago, and the companies are applying, so this money is already flowing into the region. We also managed to implement the InnoLab, which is the creative space, and that Veronica that is sitting there is running with support of the colleagues. So this is happening, you know, thanks to the great collaboration and pretty much thanks to your leadership and the push in the moments, you know, when we needed that. So this is really thanks a lot for that. And as we discussed plenty of times, Commission has invested a lot of money into R&D infrastructure in Slovakia. So over this period of 2007-13 and 14-20, there are billions of euro going into they were invested into research infrastructure, so the equipment, the buildings, and this infrastructure is mostly used for the research sake. It's not so strongly used for the commercial aspects, so for the commercial collaboration with companies. So my first question to you would be, from your perspective, what could be done, you know, to improve this or enhance the ratio of collaboration between the research and companies? But also, we've heard from Janka that Bańska Bystrzyca would like to launch the Regional Innovation Center. And we also heard from the other regions, like Košice and other, that they are thinking about similar instruments to support innovation in the regions. And this is, I'm also curious, from your perspective as a Commission, how do you see the support for the Regional Innovation Centers being conducted during the current perspective? So if you could give us a couple of thoughts about that, that would be great. Thanks.
Komisie ich podporiť. Thank you very much. On the topic of the regional innovation centers, this is really something that within the programming period 2021-2027 falls into the scope of priorities of the European Commission. It's really one of the instruments helping to minimize or mitigate the regional disparities, but also it's something that fits within our vision. The R&D infrastructure in the past was built already, and now we need to use it in a more efficient manner. Now, the thing that we imagine when we say about the Regional Innovation Center, it's not the building. So we don't want to invest into concrete and brick and mortar, but we want to invest into people, into the processes, into the instruments that can realistically promote innovations. In our thinking, we're mainly talking of the cooperation between the academia and businesses, or business sector, if you want. And this brings me to the question of the commercialization or commercial usage of the R&D infrastructure. For me, this was the stepping stone and the groundstone, basically, for our cooperation with the World Bank, how to release the R&D infrastructure, how to free the infrastructure in order to be able to use it for commercial purposes. We know that there was a 20% threshold, and with the time passing, the large portion of the R&D infrastructure is now basically completing, or the period of sustainability and durability concerning the infrastructure is coming to its end. And I believe that even the infrastructure that could be used is not used to the fullest. So I believe that the realistic usage for non-commercial and commercial purposes is not anywhere close to the ceilings that have been defined. And I'm very glad that Ms. Uhrinova spoke of us being in the same boat. We have the map of the R&D infrastructure, or this is something that we need because the businesses do not know what infrastructure there is. And even before I started to focus on this topic, we have been saying that the R&D infrastructure map in Slovakia is important, it needs to be made, but we still don't have it. So let me put it in the European context. We have the European or ESFRI, which speaks volumes, and it's quite topical that we only have 4 countries of the EU 27, and that's Slovakia, Latvia, Malta, and Luxembourg. So this is really something that is a problem here in Slovakia, and it's a problem we didn't need to have if we had prepared the map, for example, and we would be much, much further. I think the evangelization, the spreading of the word is very important, especially in the field of establishing cooperation between the business sector and academia. I think we need to raise the awareness of the importance of this topic and of the communication on an everyday basis. From where I'm standing, I think that the enclosed nature of the academia in Slovakia is part of the problem. I think even our universities are sort of enclosed, and the systems in themselves. For example, let me give you an example. When I studied at the university in Bratislava, we had teachers who studied and became assistant professors and professor all in the same university. While when I studied in Amsterdam, there was a lot of commuting, so to speak, in the academic world, that people were really taking different types and different grades of their education at different universities. So we need to establish some sort of ecosystem when it comes to the cooperation between the academic institutions. And this also is very topical for the establishing of the links between the business sector and academic institutions as well. Let me react to one other thing, and that's human resources. We've heard about the efforts to retain human resources and people in Banská Bystrica region. Now, my take is slightly different. I don't think you can stop the flow, be it inflow or outflow. If someone is from Banská Bystrica, you can stop them from going to Prague. You can stop people from Prague going to London, people from London going to New York. But we need to replace these people that are leaving the regions with ambitious people from elsewhere. So, in my opinion, we don't need to retain 100% of students in Banská Bystrica, but we need to have realistic ambitions. For example, if we offer the system of scholarships, if we offer study programs in foreign languages, then you can have people from Olomouc, from Győr, or from elsewhere coming to study in Banská Bystrica and to live here. And for me, this is the vision how to retain the human resources in the regions. I think this is more or less everything that I wanted to say for now. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Peter. So maybe we'll also have a chance later to talk about some specific way how we could do those things that you mentioned. That because these are important elements of regional development and innovation, like retaining people. And of course, I think what you said, stopping people in Banská is not possible and probably not recommended. It's better to, if they travel, then come back with enriched, with better knowledge, with broader horizons. So maybe we could also have a chance, to discuss on that in a later stage. Maybe now turning to Faro. So Professor Franciszek Szymanczyk, if I pronounce it well. He's a member of a presidium of Slovak Academy of Science, and he's also an amazing example of a very specific type of a polyglot. So he speaks, many different languages. So he's very good researcher. He's very good marketing person. So he can sell, the sand on the desert, I would say. So he also talks financing very well. And so he can speak with companies. So he really does can connect with businesses. And he's also, half a lawyer because he analyzed probably all the legal acts related to innovation and commercialization in Slovakia. And as you can imagine, he talks a lot. So it's really difficult to stop him. So, I prepared only one question for you, Fero, because I know that you flow and you jump from a topic to a topic. So maybe two. So first of all, what do you think? Do public research in Slovakia really want to collaborate with companies? Because we are talking about that this is needed, but do you really think that public researchers are interested in that? And secondly, if the first answer would be positive, what do you think? What is most needed for the public sector to have, or what would need to happen that public sector could collaborate more strongly with the business sector? Thanks.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm honored, flattered, and let me start in a controversial manner. The first answer is yes. Yes, the scientists actually want to help businesses. They want to do things for businesses. Let me give you a metaphor. Not all scientists can get a Nobel Prize. Just like not all football players can play at the Euro Championship. And even society says, well, this one is worth to play in Barcelona, and the others are for different teams. And the other ones, there are thousands of them. They never stop playing football. They play in village teams, and people are happy to see them. So the scientists, even those who don't play the Premier League, and don't score because they please the local people, because they help them with things where they don't need a Nobel Prize laureate, where they just need to fix a problem so things can work and people are happy. We have been talking about innovations, but to avoid a mistake, innovation is not the final goal. Innovation is a means for a better life. Let's agree that it's an instrument for a better life of society, and the better life of society can be seen through innovations in 3 categories, and this is where we can discuss whether we can or help or not. The first category is that innovations bring new knowledge which will increase the value of the product without increasing its production cost, so we can sell it for more. It's a higher added value. It brings taxes, and the taxes can be can be used by the government to pay for a better life of people. So innovation should bring higher added value, so that it is if it's supposed to be an interesting innovation. That's what the colleague said. Knowledge-based society. Even the primitive societies in the past, when they were hunting mammoths, they were using the knowledge. They knew that they couldn't run fast enough, so they dug a hole and they could stab the animal. So they used the knowledge. And the knowledge-based society is not about a knowledge which exists elsewhere in the world. We can import it and then think that we are a knowledge-based society. Knowledge-based economy is that it generates the knowledge itself, and that it becomes the good for the knowledge. We can pack it in a product. We can sell it as a license. But this is what we want, because the finding the knowledge brings money. There can be some money at the beginning, some cost at the beginning, but then it can bring benefits for in the long run. This is what we want, what is priority, and what the scientists would be pleased to get to the companies, to the businesses. Unfortunately, businesses are not thinking this way, because they don't have a lot of products of their own, and they don't have big ambitions to produce their products in a way different from the others, in a unique way, so that it could be as expensive that everyone can make a big profit on it. So we need to build environment for them to want it, and if the scientists want it, they can go for it. And there's one thing we would like to fix as part of the regional activities, because it is said that they don't know that it can be done, and we don't know that it should be done. And we need someone who tells them and who tells us, the mediator, ideally on one spot, because the one who needs to find out if it is possible could get the information quickly and on one spot without googling it for 1 month. And it's for us to know what really is required, what really is demanded for. And the second aspect where innovations can help is that some problem can be fixed. For example, ecological problem with energies, with waste management, problem with different life annoying things, which maybe doesn't bring much high added value. It may even cost some money, but the scientists will be pleased to help there if the businesses wanted it. Luckily, there is European Union and politicians who will force them to want it. If they don't want it, there is quite good motivation or incentive there, and I believe this is where the cooperation will start. Simply they will come and say, Houston, we have a problem. We have too much carbon dioxide. Help us with that. That will certainly happen, and maybe for that it will not require so many mediators. And what they will need is just to know who can help them with it. And the third thing is something for people who will create the innovations, and it's the innovation environment will provide room for creative work. Because if I say innovative environment, you need to fix the problem, you need to work cognitively, which will bring interesting work. You fix a problem and you come to another one. It's attractive for young people, and if such environment is created, they will be pleased to stay there where this environment exists, because they will be pleased to stay for that job. They will not run abroad. So we need to provide them with a job here. We need to build instruments so that such environment can exist here. Especially, the best motivation is that if everyone wants to make profit, so we might need some financial inspiration. Then there will be the necessity to fix the problems that exist. And if we manage to combine it well, the solution of the first two components will provide room for the third one. So if we manage to do that, it will work well. Initiative is a very good step. I appreciate it. As you can see, we are not sitting here just like a group of enthusiasts. We need to fix the problem with infrastructure from structural funds. Even the European Union knows that it is a problem and something has to be done. All ministries know it. They have some plan how to do it. So if this initiative just brought this finding, it's good. But the fact that it has got the high priority, I think that even the Ministry of Economy understands that there's different policy in the region than the national one, and that one has to see needs of the region in a way different from the national needs. It's a huge progress. So now give more money to regions so that they could do it, because for now they have their own policies, but they don't have the resources to do to work with. So now this is the what we need to instill in their hands, and then the paths or the contact between academia and businesses will start to appear, because everyone wants to be useful, and the Nobel Prize and the Real Madrid will not be for everyone, and they don't want to be frustrated hearing you're not playing as well as Messi. They want to feel that they are useful. I am useful. I am fixing problems with someone, and they are happy with that. And the last thing, when will that happen? That the scientists will really want to actively go to companies and offer solutions and help them, and not always try to win the Nobel Prize. And it will happen when the first of them gets rich. We are waiting for the first scientists to come up with something, to invent something, sell it to a company, and get rich extremely. When that happens, immediately this path will be open. So my advice is, let's help someone to get rich, someone who is set on this track.
And Fero, you are referring to yourself? You want to be the first one, or this can be someone else?
No longer have the ambition to become rich, even though obviously it would be nice. I could sacrifice myself if it helped. However, it really is the case. There is a case in the Czech Republic. My colleague might talk about it. The Czech Academy of Sciences has one institute that actually has the patent for the HIV medication, and you might have already heard about it. And they have million incomes from the license that they've sold to the pharmaceutical companies. They actually have higher incomes just from these licenses than the entire contribution of the state budget to the entire Slovak Academy of Sciences. So this is the case that we want to follow. And we had an experience in Žiar nad Hronom where we built the center when we first introduced the innovative product to the company that molds the aluminium molds, and they became the company of the year. They prepared the parts for BMW. They are the first and the only company in the world to do this, and actually they served as an example for further companies in Žiar nad Hronom, because the other companies started to approach us saying,
This is great, and I think that we could, we could discuss more about your activity in Žiar nad Hronom and the way how you relocated your innovation center to be closer to companies and to support the companies, not from Bratislava, but be closer there in a town, and that you were the motivation behind this move. So that was quite amazing, and I know that you are trying to work with companies, and this is not always easy. But yeah, I think one of the best examples, how this could be done and how this could be supported. But from what you said, I think that this could be also a nice indicator for one of the strategies, of the innovation strategies at the regional innovation or at the national level. The number of rich researchers. Very easy, to quantify. It's good for monitoring and evaluation. So it could be quite innovative, way to check the effectiveness of the strategy. So now maybe, you mentioned Petr Hladek, the director of the South Moravian Innovation Center in Brno. And I think that it would be great to hear from you about your experience in Brno, because Brno, I'm not sure, probably many of you have heard about the way they developed their innovation ecosystem. So the city collaborated with universities, and they created the center for supporting not only innovation but also business development. They've started around 20 years ago, I think, and that was not a big bang policy. It was the slow development of continuous development and support of the institution to support companies. And this was when we went to Brno and you hosted us. That was almost probably 2 years ago. The management of BBSK was so impressed with what they saw in Brno that they thought, well, maybe we should follow this direction, and maybe we should also think about the regional innovation center. And this, I think, was the kind of the seed, you know, that started to grow in BBSK, and now we are, you know, in the moment that the seed is budding, and we'll be developing that together. So, from your experience in Brno, which I think is one of the best probably examples in this part of Europe, how this innovation system could be, you know, implemented and developed, in fact. So the first question would be about the trust. So we've heard about collaboration a lot. And when we are talking to companies and we are meeting with different institutions, what we hear, and this is, you know, showing up almost during every interview, they say, well, we do not collaborate because there is no trust between different stakeholders, and so there is no kind of long-term or a mid-term even vision how to come together and solve problems. So my first question would be, what did you do in Brno to overcome this problem? Because for sure you had the situation of different institutions not collaborating with each other. So this is the number one. And this also refers to, you know, to what Edmund said, and this is not one-man show. So we need to have this collaboration. So what is your experience on that? And the second question would be, do you have any specific recommendations for BBSK from your experience that you could recommend to implement, or, you know, conversely, if there's something that you would strongly not recommend or disadvise, you know, for the region to not to do, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me. It means much for me. I loved coming to Slovakia, and it really is like a second home for me. So I really, really wish you well. I'm glad you actually ventured on this journey, and I think it's very important to focus on the support of local people and local companies to produce local values that you can export. The question that you asked is very complex. It's a $1 million question. However, let me nonetheless tell you a little bit about our story, the story of Brno. I personally have been involved in this innovation ecosystem since 2005. That's 16 years of experience, so I do remember quite a bit. I have made many mistakes. I have disrupted many things. However, since 2008, I basically spearheaded the innovation strategy. And 4 years ago, I became the director of the South Moravian Innovation Center. So let me speak to you coming from my experience, long-term experience, that is. Let me start by saying that at the beginning, we had a number of key persons in the region deciding that they want to bring a change to the region, that they want to do something. And what you need, what is crucial for this, is strong political leadership. You need to have a person with a strong political mandate. Because if you want to win the trust of people, be it the businesses, be it the foreign investors, be it the researchers, be it the managers of the research organizations, rectors, small and medium businesses and their directors, but also civil society or the NGO sector, they need to trust someone. In your case, it might be the president of the region, the mayor of the city, the mayors of larger municipalities, someone who has a legitimacy, because this is an absolute condition that needs to be fulfilled. With all respect due, one politician cannot come up with the entire system, with the entire idea. They need to have capacities, the people around them that are able to formulate the vision for them, something that they can amplify then and say, okay, this is what we are going to do. What is important is also the fact that the political leader could create coalitions with further political stakeholders and parties so that the topic that you are dealing with, since we are talking of a very complex issue that this deserves extreme attention, it will be developed over a number of political cycles. So I have to say that we basically have been developing this culture for almost 20 years, and it's only now that we can see the impact in terms of the AGDP, in terms of the R&D intensity, in the tech capital, in the number of SMEs, in the number of business entities. So it's basically only something that we could measure and see in the last 5 to 6 years. So you need time, and that's why the political leadership has to be a long term. You have to have the political support in the long term. So if you're starting here in Banská Bystrica, I think you have a great benefit because you have a leader that comes from the business environment and he knows about this. He knows how to make other people believe. He knows how to speak to his supporters, but also to his political opponents in order to ensure the long-term effect. And he needs to trust the idea, because if he doesn't trust it, then the others won't trust him. And also, this long-term vision has to be translated into particular steps and actions. We have been talking about the ambition to create the Regional Innovation Center with our colleagues. You need to have a trusted leader, someone who is not going to be a political nomination. It has to be a very transparent selection of this leader, and quality is a key in this effect. And this person has to be able to select a good team of people, and they also need to have a very well articulated support. They need to be able to use and invest their own money, not to rely on the European sources only, because European money is here now, but they don't have to be here tomorrow or in some time. And with all respect due, you always have to bear in mind that it has to be the local money that's being invested. And these are the money from the local budgets and from the regional budgets, because basically, if similarly to the political will that you need to declare, you need to also prove your words. You need to support them with the actions, and the actions of investing our own money, that means the regional money or the local money, into this is a great proof that you really need, or that you really believe the idea. So you need to have the political leadership, you need to have a high quality team, you need to invest your own money, and you need to focus on 1 or 2 main flagship topics that bring quick results, because it's only when you see the results that the community and the system starts to believe the political vision. If it's only something that you invest into and only talk about, but there are no visible or even tangible benefits, then you are not getting the result you want. And this is the combination of things which can lead to a success story, at least speaking from our experience. And obviously you need to have a very well prepared communication strategy, how to communicate about that. And last but not least, you need good luck. What are the priorities? Sorry, at the beginning we started supporting only the startups. Back in 2003, startup as a word, as a term, was pretty much non-existent in the Czech conditions, in the Czech context, or even in the Central European context. It was something completely new. People were not familiar with the term. And only after about 10 years after we basically started there, we had the first startups that had the turnover amounting to 10 billions of the Czech crowns. And then we actually had the foreign companies coming. Maybe you know of Kiwi.com software that basically it's a search engine searching for cheap holidays. And before the COVID, it was a very successful enterprise. And this was perhaps the biggest success of our innovative ecosystem, which showed that it makes sense what we are doing, and then there were other companies following the case. So that was our first priority. Then we started supporting small and medium enterprises, the productive companies that were established in the 1990s, and we supported their scaling up and growth. And to answer your second question, I've partly already answered it. So what are our recommendations for what to do and what not to do? I think it's very important to focus your attention to one or two people, to one or two things. It's not only because you don't have large amounts of money, but and this is of critical importance in the regions and basically lagging behind regions. It's quite difficult to identify the good people that can not only build but support the development of innovative ecosystems. These are not the money you would find on the street. Basically, if it's a nonsense if you plan to build a 50 people team in 3 years' time. So you need to focus your attention. And what not to do? How shall I put it? We have a saying in the Czech Republic that you should never ride a dead horse. It is very important, and I'm speaking from my personal point of view, it's very good to be independent, to be assertive to a certain level, to stick to your job and to what you're doing. And it's important to really follow your priorities. You should not be afraid to be under pressure. And this is my personal expression. I am always under some or certain level of political pressure. All the time someone wants something. I'm not talking of illegal stuff, but if you're successful, people want you to do more and more and more people, and you have to learn how to say no. You should not cooperate with the subjects and entities that are not thinking likewise, that are not basically that you don't understand, or with whom you don't have mutual understanding.
Thanks, Petr, a lot. These were very, very nice and I think very targeted pieces of advice, and I think that we've been noting them down. At least I myself and Janka, I saw writing, and then I think that you mentioned a couple of elements that are already present in Bystrá. There are probably a couple of elements that still need to be implemented or enhanced in the region. And I think that what is coming up from not only from your interventions but from all of us, that we learned a lot during this process of working together, that communication and multi-level governance, or this multi-level communication, is so important. And I think that this is great to see that this is functioning so well. You know, we have commission, we have ministries, we have the region, we have scientists, and this is coming to, I mean, this is the community that is talking to each other. And what I also like about your last sentence is that you should not be afraid of pressure. And I think that we had those, moments here that there is pressure, there is sometimes there are disagreements, but it's great to be able to voice them and then solve them together. And this is, I think, what builds community and builds resilience for future. And I think that what we witness as while supporting you, this is that this process is really well on track, and it's really amazing. So from our side, we would like to really congratulate you how well this is developing. I know this is 4, so I don't think that we will have another round of questions or comments because we are ending now, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Okay. So I would like to one more time thank you very much for all the effort that you put into the Catching-up Regions initiative. I think we would not have achieved so much haven't been it for this great collaboration. And thanks also for sharing the ideas and suggestions what could be done to strengthen the opportunities or use the opportunities in Bystrá. So looking forward for the next year, and thanks for also bearing with us to the very end of the conference. Thanks a lot.